really happy to be here today, and to have this chance to share with you some of the things we've been doing in Taiwan to prevent domestic violence. You know, domestic violence is something that crosses all borders. No matter where we're from, it's something people can feel and relate to. In the past 20 years, Taiwan has come a long way. We've made changes in laws, built new systems, and tried out different ideas in real practice. Today, I'll give you a simple introduction to how our domestic violence prevention law was developed, how we protect survivors, and how we run treatment programs for people who use violence. I hope these things will give you a better idea of what we've been working on, and maybe some of it can be useful to your work as well. Before I begin, let me quickly introduce myself. I'm a psychiatric social worker, and I've been working in this field for about 10 years now. For the past 7 years, I've been leading group treatment programs for people who have used violence in their families. Yes, those who have hurt their partners or children. Basically, I sit in a room with people who used violence, and we talk about life, about change. Sometimes when I tell my friends about my job, they look at me with a worried face and say, "Huh? How do you dare to do that?" And I usually smile and say, "You know what? I've asked myself the same thing, many times." But honestly, seeing someone who was once super defensive and resistant, slowly begin to try not to use violence, try to speak more gently to their partner or child. That moment is really touching. I'm still doing this work now, together with a group of brave teammates, I mean my coworkers. We work hard together not to make these people perfect, but to help them become a little less like who they were yesterday. So first, I'll give a quick introduction to what family violence is. I know, everyone has probably heard of it. But honestly, what most people think family violence looks like, is sometimes very different from what I actually see at work. So, I'd like us to build a shared understanding first. What are we really talking about when we say family violence? Next, I'll walk you through a quick timeline of how Taiwan's Domestic Violence Prevention Act was developed. It started from something like, "Hey, maybe we need a law for this?" And from there, it went through many changes and updates. The whole process was a bit like building a house and drawing the blueprint at the same time. Sometimes we'd build halfway and go, "Oh no, we forgot to leave space for the pipes." Then we'd go back and fix it. Then, I'll explain some of the protections we now offer for survivors. And finally, we'll get into the part I know best, and the part people always ask me, "How can you do this?" That's the work with people who have used violence. The so-called offenders. The whole talk is designed to give you a clear and layered picture of Taiwan's journey in preventing family violence. Sounds like a lot, right? But don't worry, I'll do my best to keep things clear and smooth, and I promise it won't sound like I'm reading a law textbook. After all, I'm not here to pass the bar exam. Let's start with something important, how Taiwan's Domestic Violence Prevention Act defines family violence. In Taiwan, family violence isn't just about hitting or physical attacks. It also includes emotional and psychological harm. That means things like insults, threats, controlling someone's actions, financial pressure, or even stopping someone from freely leaving or entering their own home. All of that counts as family violence. Put simply, if someone in your family does something illegal that hurts you, whether it's your body or your mind, that's family violence. Now, when we say family member, we don't just mean a spouse or a close blood relative. It also includes people you used to live with, people you were in a relationship with, or anyone you had an intimate connection with. That means an ex-husband, a former live-in partner, or even someone you broke up with but are still somehow tangled fault with. Why such a wide definition? Because we want to make sure more people are protected under the law, and not left out just because their relationship is complicated. I'll go into more detail about who counts as a family member a bit later. Now, let's talk about some of the common tactics used in family violence. When people hear domestic violence, most imagine someone hitting or pushing, like in the movies. But in real life, it comes in many more forms. Take psychological abuse, for example. This includes sarcasm, the silent treatment, or threats, anything that keeps a person living in fear or constant stress. Then there's verbal abuse. It's not just yelling. It's insults and humiliation that chip away at a person's confidence, and sometimes hurt even more than a punch. Sexual violence can mean forced sex, sexual harassment, or any kind of unwanted physical contact. It causes deep emotional wounds, especially when it happens in a relationship that's supposed to be safe. There's also neglect and abandonment, which people often overlook. It happens a lot with children or older adults, when no one gives them the care they need, and they end up isolated and helpless. And finally, we have economic abuse. This one's sneaky. It might look like refusing to give money for daily needs, or not letting someone get a job. It traps people in financial dependence, and that can be one of the hardest gauges to break. Sometimes these types of abuse happen on their own. But often, they're mixed together, and they repeat over and over. The damage they cause goes way beyond what you see on the surface. So now that we've talked about what family violence is, and what it can look like, let's move on to a really important question: why does this matter so much? The truth is, family violence has a much bigger impact than most people imagine. It's not just a couple fighting. It's not a private family matter. And it's definitely not something we should ignore just because it's happening behind closed doors. It's a serious violation of human rights. And it's also a major public health and safety issue. People who live with violence over time don't just end up with bruises or broken bones. They carry deep emotional wounds, anxiety, depression, self-doubt. And that pain? It often makes it harder for them to take care of their kids. So family life breaks down. And the children growing up in that environment? They might learn those violent patterns and carry them into the next generation. That's why we take family violence seriously, because the people being hurt are often the most vulnerable: women, children, older adults, people with disabilities. They stay silent not because it's okay, but because they're scared, dependent, or feel helpless. And if we stay silent too, it's like we're giving the abuser permission to keep going. Family violence isn't just someone losing their temper. It's about long-term control and oppression, rooted in power imbalance. If we ignore it, the cost isn't just personal, it's social. Our health systems, our courts, our social services, they all get pulled in. And in the end, none of us are really untouched by it. When we talk about family violence, a lot of people's first reaction is, isn't it just a fight between husband and wife? Somebody lost their temper? But if that's all you think it is, you're really underestimating the problem. Family violence is never just a one-time thing. There are two deeper forces behind it: cultural influence, and deeply rooted gender inequality. In other words, it's not just about someone suddenly snapping. It's the result of long-term patterns, built up over time in our society. Culture and gender structures are like the soil. Not soft, gentle garden soil, but thick, stubborn ground that's been shaped for generations. That's the kind of soil where violence grows deep roots, and becomes really hard to pull out. In many cultures, men are seen as the head of the household, while women are expected to obey, sacrifice, and basically act like the perfect employee at home. This kind of patriarchal thinking gives abusers the false idea that they have the right to control or discipline others. And when society stays quiet about it, that violence starts to feel justified. Second, gender inequality makes it incredibly hard for victims to escape. When women face disadvantages in education, employment, property rights, and the legal system, when they're financially dependent, isolated, or judged by others, leaving an abusive relationship becomes extremely difficult. Family violence isn't just a personal problem. It's a reflection of structural injustice. We also hear this saying a lot: don't air your dirty laundry. But that phrase forces victims into silence. It protects the abuser. When violence is treated as a private family matter, the victim's voice gets muted, and the abuser feels even more free to keep going. What's worse, sometimes violence is seen as normal. People say things like, "He only hits her when he's drunk," or "she provoked him." But those excuses? They're not harmless. They're how society tolerates violence, and even makes room for it to grow. So, after talking about power abuse and gender inequality behind family violence, now I want to remind you all, family violence is not just some fighting and shouting. It's a very serious public health problem. How so? Family violence doesn't only cause physical injuries. It also leaves long-lasting mental wounds. These invisible hurts make victims feel anxious, depressed, and even affect their overall health. And these effects don't just weigh down one person. They strain our whole healthcare system, and social welfare resources, almost to the breaking point. So, family violence is definitely not just someone else's private matter that we can ignore. It's a health risk that the entire society must share and face together. The physical injuries, the mental damage, these costs are paid by all of us. Especially the most vulnerable groups, women, children, elders, and people with disabilities, they suffer the most. Let's start with women. They're the #1 victims of family violence. The harm is not just physical. It also goes deep into the mind, causing anxiety, depression, self-harm, and PTSD. If the abuse happens during pregnancy, it can lead to miscarriage or premature birth. Long-term violence can cause high blood pressure, digestive issues, and a weak immune system. What's even harder to bear, many women stay silent. They're scared. They feel ashamed. They believe no one will listen. Some don't even dare to see a doctor. And that silence hurts more than the wounds. Now let's talk about children. Even if they are not hit, just seeing violence is enough to plant fear inside them. They may become distracted, angry, withdrawn, or anxious. Some have nightmares or night terrors. These are not signs of being naughty. They are signs of trauma. Worse, these children may grow up and repeat what they saw. And the cycle of violence continues. Next, the elderly. They are often the most silent victims. They may be abused or neglected by children, spouses, or caregivers. This leads to poor nutrition, more falls, and fast decline. Because of age, mobility issues, or speech loss, they often cannot ask for help. They depend on their abuser. So they endure in silence. Finally, people with disabilities. They are at even higher risk. Communication barriers make abuse hard to detect. They rely on caregivers, and sometimes, the abuser is the caregiver. Escape is nearly impossible. And without trained support, their suffering often goes unseen. Just now, we talked about how family violence affects personal health. Now let's look at how it damages public health and social resources. First, medical costs. And no, it's not a small number. Survivors often go to the hospital again and again. For injuries, chronic illness, or trauma. The bills? They're like a bottomless pit. Honestly, if health insurance had a VIP program, survivors of domestic violence would be Diamond members by now. But here's the bigger problem: if medical staff don't know how to spot family violence, they might miss the signs. A victim walks in. But the doctor says, "Looks like she just fell," or maybe it's just stress. That's a lost chance to help. And what about the social safety net? It's under heavy pressure too. Social workers, police, shelters, they are out there almost every day. They're like superheroes. Just without the cape. They protect, respond, follow up. But they need people. They need funding. This isn't something you solve with a slogan. Then there's work and school. Survivors may lose focus, take time off, or lose their jobs. Kids in violent homes may skip school or drop out. Over time, this slows down personal growth, and hurts the whole society's productivity. From women to children, from elders to people with disabilities, the shadow of family violence is everywhere. This is not just some family problem. It's a serious public health challenge. Now, let's talk about Taiwan's legal system for preventing family violence. It's not just a law, it's like a real-life example of the famous Filipino spirit called Bayanihan. Bayanihan means everyone working together, helping each other, like when people carry a house to a new place. That's what this law tries to do. Not just punish the offender, but bring people together to prevent violence, protect survivors, and help them stand back up again. Taiwan's Domestic Violence Prevention Act has been updated many times. Each time, it gets stronger. Each time, it becomes more focused on teamwork. Because in the end, the goal is to protect every family's safety and dignity, together. In Taiwan, family violence wasn't seen as a public issue until much later. Before the 1990s, most people thought it was just family business. If a couple fought, others should stay out of it. And the government? Even less reason to get involved. As a result, many women and children lived with violence for years. They were scared. They felt ashamed. Some didn't even know they could ask for help. So they stayed silent. Then came the Deng Ru-Wen case in 1993. A woman who had suffered years of abuse, killed her husband. The whole country was shocked. It was like a lightning strike. Suddenly, people realized, family violence isn't just private. It's a serious social problem. Women's groups, legal experts, and social workers all spoke out. They demanded action. They called for a law. This moment became the turning point, the push that led to Taiwan's Domestic Violence Prevention Act. Now, let's take a moment and listen to her story. Deng Ru-Wen's marriage was a mistake. Right from the start. She was just 15. When a man named Lin Hsu, more than 20 years older, started getting close to her. He introduced himself as a friend of her mother. But this man had a dark past. He had once been convicted of murder. And not just that, he had sexually assaulted Deng's mother. He had beaten her too. Then one day, when Deng's mother was in the hospital, Lin pretended he was going to visit her. But instead, he raped Deng. She got pregnant. And he forced her to move in with him. After moving in, Deng experienced violence almost every single day. Whenever Lin got drunk, he'd get angry, he would hit her. Scream terrible things at her. He treated her like a punching bag. One night, the neighbor heard Deng screaming and crying. She wanted to call the police, but her husband stopped her, saying, "Hey, it's just a husband disciplining his wife. Mind your own business." That sentence, that attitude, was exactly how society thought about domestic violence at the time. It was considered a private matter. Something outsiders shouldn't interfere with. In the beginning, Deng Ru-Wen chose to endure everything. She hoped that if she could quietly take the abuse, her family would be safe. But things kept getting worse. Many times, she tried to escape and run back to her parents. Then, one day, Lin couldn't find her. And do you know what he did? He took their baby, who was less than 1 year old, and placed the baby on top of a car. Then he stepped on the gas and slammed on the brakes. Again and again. Trying to force Deng to come out from hiding. Thankfully, her neighbors rescued the baby in time. And they quickly helped Deng hide in a local temple. But sadly, the nightmare wasn't over yet. That same night, Lin stormed into her parents' house. He attacked Deng's father. He even tied him up with an extension cord. And tortured him. It wasn't until Deng's younger sister managed to run outside and beg neighbors for help, that someone finally called the police. But can you guess what the police said first? When they got there, they said, "This is your family's problem. Don't add to our workload." And it wasn't just the police who ignored her situation. When the case moved into mediation, Lin's family simply said, "We're willing to reconcile." And Lin himself even threatened Deng Ru-Wen, saying, "If you don't marry me, I will kill your whole family." She was pregnant, unmarried, under huge pressure from society, and terrified for her family's safety. She had no choice but to put on a wedding dress and enter into a marriage she never wanted. After the wedding, the violence continued. Lin didn't just beat her. He beat their child, too. He threatened her parents. And even forced her younger sister into sexual acts. Even when Deng called the police, the laws weren't strong enough. And society wasn't ready to truly help her. Lin was only sentenced to 6 months in jail. And those 6 months turned out to be the happiest time of her married life. When Lin got out of jail, things became even worse. He started attacking her sister directly. And at that point, Deng just couldn't bear it any longer. to protect her family and herself. She picked up a hammer and a knife and ended the nightmare that had lasted for years. That night, Deng went from being a victim of domestic violence to being labeled a criminal. This case, this woman who killed her abusive husband, shocked all of Taiwan. It finally forced society to pay attention to the reality of domestic violence. But many people judged Deng without knowing her story. Some sympathized with her. Others condemned her. Some said, family matters shouldn't end up in court. Even the judge initially said, she admitted to killing him, so she must go to jail. In the first trial, the court found Deng Ru-Wen guilty of murder under the criminal code. Because she turned herself in, her sentence was reduced to 5 years and 6 months in prison. But thanks to the hard work of women's rights groups, the second court accepted a psychological evaluation. It found that Deng had suffered from mental exhaustion caused by years of abuse. Her sentence was reduced to just 3 years and 6 months. The photo on the left shows Deng Ru-Wen in custody. On the right, women's rights activists rally in her support, holding a banner that reads, "Deng Ru-Wen is not guilty. Support victims of marital violence." Their message was clear: it's time society acknowledges the reality and impact of domestic abuse. Because of this shocking case, Taiwan finally started to face the problem of family violence. It was no longer just a family matter. It became everyone's responsibility. On May 28, 1998, Taiwan's legislature passed the Domestic Violence Prevention Act. It came into effect in June 1999. With this, Taiwan became the first country in Asia to fight family violence through national law. This law acts like a red card in sports, a clear message: violence is not allowed. And it will not be tolerated. There are 3 key features. First, it clearly defines what family violence is. This helps people see that it's not just a private issue. It's something the law can step into. Second, it created the protection order system. This gives survivors fast legal protection, like an emergency umbrella in a storm. Third, it set up a teamwork system across different sectors. Police, courts, hospitals, and social workers all work together, like a superhero team against family violence. At the heart of this law is one simple message: protect the victim. Change the offender. First, the protection order system. It's the most basic, and the most critical. If the victim is in danger, the police or court can issue a protection order fast. This keeps the offender from getting close, making contact, or harassing the victim. The first step is always, keep the victim safe. Second, cross-system cooperation. Because family violence isn't just one issue. It affects health, law, education, money, everything. That's why the law says, police, social workers, doctors, teachers, and the courts, they all need to work together. Only then can we really help. Third, working with the offender. This is not just about punishment. It's about change. Offenders are required by law to join counseling and education programs. And if they don't go, they can be forced to. Why? Because we want to stop the cycle of violence. Lastly, shelter and support for victims. We have shelters for safety. We offer legal help, mental health care, and job support, to help survivors rebuild their lives. The whole system works like a safety net. A net that gives survivors a way out, gives offenders a chance to change, and brings the whole society together to stand against violence. Now, let's take a quick look at how Taiwan's Domestic Violence Prevention Act has evolved over time. Every amendment made the law stronger, and more in touch with real-life needs. The 2007 amendment was a major turning point. Key changes included, including cohabiting partners as protected persons, to reflect different types of families. Adding stalking and offender intervention programs, a shift toward addressing violent behavior directly. Requiring every city and county to set up a domestic violence prevention center and a local committee, to share responsibility between national and local governments. Dividing protection orders into emergency, temporary, and regular types, and making them easier to apply for. Making court procedures more survivor-friendly, private hearings, separate questioning, support persons allowed, and no forced mediation. These changes gave victims a safer space to speak up. The 2015 amendment expanded protections even further, officially included emotional abuse, economic control, stalking harassment, and even witnessing violence as forms of family violence. Expanded offender programs to include parenting education, putting the focus on change, not just punishment. Local governments were required to act, the law changed from may to must, and each ministry's role was clearly defined. Included people in non-cohabiting but intimate relationships as eligible for protection. The 2023 amendment filled several key gaps, strengthened date's privacy, so abusers can't track victims through family or friends. Close the protection gap, if the case is still in court, protection continues without pause. Digital sexual violence, like sharing private images, is now clearly protected by law. Criminal procedures now apply to intimate partner violence, even if the couple doesn't live together. Police can step in right away. LGBTQ+ partners and their families are now fully protected, a strong step toward supporting all types of families. In short, every amendment shows how society is growing in its understanding of family violence. We've come a long way, from calling it a private matter to seeing it as a shared social responsibility. Now, let's talk about Taiwan's overall strategy for preventing family violence. Put simply, how do we bring family violence out of the shadows, and into the light? How do we turn it from something hidden at home into something that everyone knows about, and everyone is willing to face together? To explain this, we'll use a model called 3 levels of prevention. We'll go through it step by step. First, primary prevention. This means stopping family violence before it starts. We focus on changing attitudes and shaping a safer environment. It begins with gender equality education. We go into schools and communities. We use posters, short films, creative contests, anything that spreads the message, stopping violence is not just a family matter. So what's the goal? To help more people care, and more people take action. Because when more people care, more people speak up. And when more people act, change actually begins. In schools, lessons on gender and healthy relationships are now part of the curriculum. Kids learn early on how to build respectful and safe connections with others. For new immigrant families, the government also provides multilingual materials and services, so they know how to get help and where to find support in Taiwan. Next, secondary prevention. This is all about early detection and quick response. In Taiwan, we have a 24-hour hotline, 113. When signs of family violence or conflict appear, anyone can call and get help immediately. Sometimes, just having someone to talk to, someone who helps you think clearly, can stop things from getting worse. We also have a men's support line. It gives men a space to talk about emotional stress and family struggles. This is important. Many violent behaviors start from unspoken pain and frustration. For example, a man with a well-paid professional job once called in. He and his wife, a full-time mom, kept clashing over money and parenting. Through the helpline, he realized his anger came from feeling alone and misunderstood. He learned to shift his words. From, "Where did you spend the money?" to, "I'm a bit worried we might go over budget." That simple change in tone made his wife lower her guard. They began to talk, really talk. We also offer parenting guidance and mediation support for divorcing families, so parents can still put children first in times of chaos. Social workers make home visits to vulnerable families and long-term caregivers, spotting stress points early and stepping in before things go wrong. In short, secondary prevention means, someone sees it. Someone steps in. Before it explodes. And you, those of you in the medical field, are often the first to notice the signs. When systems connect, healthcare, social work, and community support, we can stabilize families before harm happens. That's the true power of secondary prevention. Finally, tertiary prevention. This is what we do after violence has already happened, to stop it from happening again. Step 1 is fast action. Taiwan has a central referral system. As soon as a case is reported, the system sends it to the right agency right away. No delays. For survivors, we offer shelter, legal support, counseling, and help with daily life and employment. For children who have witnessed violence, trained professionals provide trauma care and help them feel safe again. For the offenders, it's not just police action. We also provide counseling and education programs. They learn emotional control, and how to communicate without violence. This reduces the risk of future harm. Most importantly, we've built a cross-sector safety network. Police, social workers, doctors, schools, and courts, they all work together to protect families from every angle. From prevention, to early detection, to long-term support, everything we do has one goal: to help more people become part of the solution. So that home can truly be a safe place. Now, let's take a quick look at how family violence cases are handled in the legal system. Specifically, what happens to the offender under Taiwan's Domestic Violence Prevention Act. Step 1, Arrest or detention. If the police arrive and the offender is caught in the act, they can arrest on the spot. If the situation is dangerous, they don't need a court warrant. As long as police and prosecutors agree, they can detain immediately. How do they decide? They look at things like, does the offender have a criminal record? Are they likely to do it again? Is the victim a child, an elder, or someone with a disability? Step 2, Detention or restriction orders. If prosecutors see a high risk of repeat violence, they can ask the court to hold the offender in custody. Even if no detention is ordered, the court can still issue restriction orders, like no contact, no approaching, or forced removal from the home. If the offender breaks these rules, the court can cancel bail and order immediate detention. One important reminder: sometimes the victim and offender still live together, even though there's already a protection order in place. If we come across this in our work, we can report it, and it matters. Step 3, Probation and intervention. Some offenders are given probation instead of jail time. But that doesn't mean no consequences. They have to follow strict rules, like respecting the protection order and attending intervention programs. If they refuse, the court can cancel probation and enforce the original sentence. In short, from arrest, to restriction, to rehabilitation, these legal steps directly affect what we do in the field. If we understand the process, we can protect survivors more effectively, and work more smoothly with the justice system. Now, let's cover something serious but vital for all frontline workers: the family violence reporting system. We often say, if you know and don't report, you're an accomplice. In Taiwan's Domestic Violence Prevention Act, this isn't just a slogan. It's the law. Under Article 50, certain professionals must report any suspected family violence within 24 hours. No ignoring it. No delaying. Then who has this duty? Doctors, nurses, psychologists, social workers, teachers, counselors, caregivers, police officers, immigration officers. If you work on the front lines, you're probably one of them. Here's an example: a woman comes in for a checkup. She quietly says she falls a lot. Then she glances nervously at her husband beside her. That's your cue. If you have a reasonable suspicion, you can report it. After that, the social welfare system takes over. To be clear, we're not asking you to play detective. But we can't be passive bystanders. Reporting activates the protection process. It gives the whole system a chance to step in and help those in need. In Taiwan, frontline workers like medical staff, social workers, and teachers are legally required to report suspected domestic violence cases within 24 hours. The principle is actually very simple. And I believe it's quite similar to what's written in your VOC Act about barangay health workers: protect first. Ask questions later. We don't need hard proof. And we're not supposed to figure out who's right or wrong. From what I understand, under the VOC Act in the Philippines, barangay officials are required to set up a VA desk. And when a case is reported, they have to step in right away, help survivors apply for protection orders, and if needed, even arrest the offender on the spot. Of course, the systems in our two countries are different. and how they work may vary from place to place. But the core message is the same: communities play a key role in protecting survivors. This kind of system reflects a shared value. And it's the direction we're all working toward. In Taiwan, that's what we try to do, too, to be the first one willing to reach out. So, how do you report? The process is simple. You can call, go online, or send a written form to the local Domestic Violence Prevention Center or the City or County Social Affairs Bureau. Here are two things to reassure you. First, your identity is kept confidential. The offender will not know who reported. Second, the law protects good faith reporters. You won't be punished for getting involved. You're saving someone. But, if you don't report when you should, there are real consequences. You could be fined between 6,000 Taiwan dollars and 30,000 Taiwan dollars, that's about 10,000 to 50,000 pesos. You could also get a warning, or even face workplace penalties. Let's be clear, this is not about breaking up families. It's about stopping tragedy before it happens. We may be the first way out a survivor ever sees. And whether or not we report, can be the turning point that ends the violence. Now, let's go over the common ways to report family violence in Taiwan. First, online reporting. We have a website called eCare Platform, log in, fill out the form, and submit. It's fast, confidential, and efficient. Many medical and social workers prefer this method. Second, written reporting. Some agencies still use fax to send written reports to the local Domestic Violence Prevention Center. It's less common, but still useful in certain situations. Third, phone reporting. There are two important numbers to remember. 110 is the police emergency line. If the violence is happening right now, call this number. 113 is the National Domestic Violence and Protection Hotline. It's 24/7, and always answered by a trained professional. We often say, 113 means one number, one service window, 3 areas of protection. Those 3 areas are, family violence, vulnerable groups, like children, elders, and people with disabilities, sexual assault and harassment, and yes, 113 offers multilingual support: Mandarin, Taiwanese, English, Vietnamese, Thai, Indonesian, Khmer. It's very accessible for people from diverse cultural backgrounds. Next, let me introduce Taiwan's 113 Protection Hotline. I know that in the Philippines, family and community support are deeply valued. In Taiwan, our 113 hotline reflects the same spirit of kapwa, shared humanity and mutual care. It's a 24/7 helpline. Always open. Always someone there to listen. Day or night. Weekdays or holidays. 113 is managed by the Ministry of Health and Welfare, and carried out by local domestic violence prevention centers. The system is clear and structured. Step 1, identify the need. 113 offers multilingual support, not just Mandarin and Taiwanese, but also English, Vietnamese, Thai, Indonesian, and Khmer. Just like in the Philippines, language builds trust. It helps people feel safe and understood. Step 2, match the service. The hotline team quickly connects callers to the right kind of help: family violence, sexual assault, or child protection. Step 3, take action. The case is sent to the local center, where professionals follow up. If it's urgent, 113 contacts the police, 110, right away, and sends a social worker to help. And if it's a third-party report, say from a doctor or neighbor, 113 will later update them on the outcome. That way, every report is followed up. Every concern gets a response. For us, 113 is more than just a phone number. It's a symbol of care. A reminder that we're never truly alone. When something's wrong, reach out. And believe, someone will be there to catch you. Now, let's turn to one of the most important parts of Taiwan's Domestic Violence Prevention Act: cross-system collaboration. This isn't a side feature. It's the core of our entire prevention system. The law clearly states, police, schools, healthcare, social welfare, civil affairs, household registration, labor, media, and the courts, each has a role to play. Why? To make sure survivors get support that is continuous and complete. Article 4 of the law requires all sectors to work together, and respond quickly, as one system. That means, no matter where a survivor shows up first, a hospital, a school, a police station, or a community center, they will be guided to the help they need. They won't be left alone. And they won't fall through the cracks. In short, family violence prevention is not one department's job. It's everyone's responsibility. And with cross-sector collaboration, we can truly build a strong safety net, and protect every person who needs help. Moving on, let's take a look at what the central government does under Taiwan's Domestic Violence Prevention Act. The lead agency is the Ministry of Health and Welfare, especially the Social and Family Affairs Administration. They are like the headquarters of the whole system. Their main duties include coordinating national policy, creating and promoting action plans, providing funding and resources to local governments, monitoring how each area is doing, but they don't work alone. When needed, they form interagency teams so everyone can respond together. For example, the Ministry of Justice handles the prosecution system, things like protection orders, indictments, and legal safeguards. The National Police Agency oversees the police, receiving cases, responding on-site, and taking action. The Ministry of Education, Health Promotion Administration, and local health bureaus are in charge of prevention education, mental health, and medical support. To put it simply, the central government sets the direction, leads the team, and brings the resources together. This gives local governments a clear plan, so the system stays strong and organized, not scattered and confusing. Next, let's talk about what local governments do in family violence prevention, and how different sectors work together. At the center of the local system is the Domestic Violence Prevention Center. It's part of the Social Affairs Bureau. You can think of it as the heart of local response. It doesn't just sit behind a desk. It works like a rescue command post, helping survivors escape violence and rebuild their lives. For example, need legal help? The center helps survivors apply for protection orders. The court can stop the offender from making contact, and arrange separate court hearings to ease stress for the victim. Police are the frontline responders. They handle reports, visit homes, enforce protection orders, arrange emergency shelter, and when needed, detain the offender. The Education Bureau supports children exposed to violence. They arrange school transfers, teach violence prevention, train teachers, and provide counseling, so kids can keep learning in a safe, stable space. In this next section, let's take a closer look at how the Domestic Violence Prevention Act actually protects survivors. What kinds of protection does the law offer? Where does it all begin, when someone is trying to escape violence and start a new life? That's what we are going to explore next. When we talk about legal protection for survivors, the most important tool is the protection order. There are 3 types, based on urgency. First, emergency protection order. If someone is in immediate danger, there's no time for paperwork. The police, prosecutor, or local government can apply directly to the court. The court decides within 4 hours, no hearing needed. It's fast. It's urgent. And it works 24/7. Second, temporary protection order. The situation isn't an emergency, but it still can't wait for the full court process. The court reviews the case in writing. It gives short-term protection while the full hearing is being scheduled. Third, ordinary protection order. This is the full legal process. Both sides go to court and present their case. The order can last up to 2 years, and can be extended. It includes clear rules, no contact, stay away, move out of the home, etc. But here's something really important to remember: only the emergency protection order can be requested by phone, in person, or by fax, 24 hours a day. The other 2 can only be filed in writing, during working hours. This system is designed for one clear goal: to give immediate protection when it matters most. Now let's talk about a common question: can a protection order be cancelled? The answer is yes. Under Article 15, Paragraph 2 of the Domestic Violence Prevention Act, as long as the order is still in effect, the victim, or even the litigant, can ask the court to cancel it, change it, or extend it. The court considers a few key questions. Has the offender really changed? Is the victim still at risk? Will this decision help protect the victim, and their children? If safety is still a concern, the victim can ask the court to extend the order, as long as they apply before it expires. The court will decide whether to renew it. But what happens if the protection order isn't in place yet? Don't worry. The police can step in right away, take action to protect the victim, and help keep them safe while waiting for the court to issue the order. Now let's talk about who's actually protected by a protection order. In Taiwan, it's not just for spouses or ex-spouses. Under the Domestic Violence Prevention Act, anyone legally recognized as a family member can be protected, including their minor children. Here's how it breaks down. First, current or former spouses. Even if the marriage is over, the law still applies. Second, people in cohabiting relationships. You don't need to be married. If you've been living together long-term, sharing finances or caregiving responsibilities, you may be considered family. This includes partners, roommates, or live-in caregivers. Third, direct relatives. That means parents, children, grandparents, grandchildren, including adopted family members. Fourth, extended family. Siblings, uncles, aunts, cousins, as long as they're within 4 degrees of kinship. And finally, even in-laws can be protected. That includes a sister-in-law, brother-in-law, or even the spouse of a cousin. Here's the point, Taiwan's law doesn't just protect the nuclear family. It protects the whole circle of close relationships, so that everyone can feel safe and supported under the law. Besides traditional family members, Taiwan's law has expanded the scope of protection. First, children or teens who witness family violence. Even if they are not directly harmed, living in a violent home still affects their mental health and daily life. That's why they can also apply for a protection order, to keep themselves safe from further trauma. Another major change came in 2015, with the addition of the Dating Violence Clause. Now, anyone age 16 or older can apply for a protection order even if they never lived together or don't have a legal family tie. As long as there was a past romantic or intimate relationship, and there is threat or violence, the law will still protect them. Simply put, whether it's violence inside the family or harm in an intimate relationship, the law gives survivors a way out. So, what can a protection order actually do? In short, it's designed to help victims stay safe and stable. Here's what it can include. 1. No violence or harassment. This covers all forms: physical attacks, verbal abuse, emotional threats, even phone calls, text messages, or stalking. All of it is banned. 2. Offender must move out. If the abuser lives with the victim, the court can order them to leave. They must also stay away from key places, like the survivor's school, workplace, or shelter. 3. Property and child custody decisions. The court can decide who gets to use shared property, and who has temporary custody of the children. It can also limit the offender's visitation, or even block all contact, if that's what safety requires. 4. Offender must pay and receive treatment. They may be ordered to cover living costs, medical bills, legal fees, and join counseling or addiction programs. The goal is to change the behavior, not just stop it. 5. Block access to personal information. The court can stop the offender, or certain family members, from accessing the survivor's private information. This includes things like home address or ID records. It prevents the abuser from tracking them through household registration or other official channels. It's all about keeping the survivor safe. 6. Prevents sexual image abuse. In sexual violence cases, the court can ban the offender from saving or sharing any sexual images. They can also be forced to delete or surrender the files. 7. Other protective actions. The court can add any other conditions based on what the survivor needs. The focus is always the same: protect the survivor. If the abuser breaks the most, if the offender violates key parts of the protection order, like using violence again, stalking, fail to follow the required treatment program, or sharing private images. That's not just breaking the protection order. It's a crime. In serious cases, the offender can face up to 3 years in prison, or criminal detention, plus a fine of up to 100,000 Taiwan dollars, about 180,000 pesos. Even more important, this is a public crime. That means the victim does not need to press charges. If police or prosecutors learn about it, they must investigate. They cannot look the other way. So never assume that if the victim stays silent, the offender gets away. That belief is completely wrong. Next, I'll show you a service flowchart that explains what happens after a victim is reported. Step 1, Reporting. There are many ways to report. It's not just limited to medical staff, teachers, or social workers. Anyone can call the 113 hotline to report suspected violence. This gives more people a chance to step in, right when it matters most. Step 2, the case goes to the local prevention center. They coordinate the full support network, including hospitals for injury exams and medical reports, police for safety checks and emergency protection. If needed. Step 3, we activate different services based on the situation. If the victim is in clear danger, we respond right away. That might mean a home visit, help finding a safe place to stay, or other emergency steps to keep them safe. But if the situation is more stable, a social worker steps in to assess what's going on. They work with the victim to make a plan, something that fits their needs, and offers ongoing support. These services usually fall into two main groups. On one side, they focus on the offender, also known as the respondent. On the other side, they focus on the victim, providing protection and support. In practice, if the court orders the offender to join an intervention program, the local health bureau is responsible for assigning them to the right service provider. As for the details of offender intervention, I'll go deeper into that in the next section. So, what kind of services can victims receive? The support is actually very broad. It covers many parts of life, including medical care and emergency shelter, court support, legal aid, and help applying for a protection order, job assistance, financial support, and vocational training, special counseling for children and teens who witness domestic violence. These services aim to help victims rebuild their lives, step by step, through support that covers health, safety, law, finances, and mental well-being. But for today, I'll just highlight a few key services that I think are most important to know. When we look at these services, we also see something very real: the long road survivors face in rebuilding their lives. The first challenge is personal safety. Violence doesn't just hurt the body. The emotional wounds often run deeper, and take longer to heal. Then comes the pressure of legal procedures. The process is complex, and ongoing threats from the offender can leave victims feeling anxious and helpless. Daily life isn't easy either. Many survivors have no stable income. Finding a safe place to live or starting a new job can be incredibly hard. And social stigma? That makes everything even harder. On top of that, many survivors are also caring for children, helping them deal with emotional pain and school challenges at the same time. That's why our support is not just short-term rescue. It's about walking with them, through the lowest points, until they can stand again. This kind of ongoing, relationship-based support is the key to helping them truly recover their strength and rebuild their lives. Now that we've seen the challenges victims face, I want to highlight a very important idea. The first step to protecting yourself is building a safety plan. On the slide, you'll see an example of the safety planning sheet we give to victims. Its goal is simple: help them recognize danger, reduce risk, and protect themselves and their children when things get critical. Whether or not they plan to leave the relationship, we always encourage victims to make a safety plan. It can't guarantee safety, but it does increase awareness and the ability to respond. This plan has 4 key parts. 1. Invite the victim to take part. At first, many are unsure. But looking back at warning signs helps them prepare for what might come. 2. Identify high-risk situations. Like when the abuser drinks, or lashes out after stress at work. These are common red flags. 3. Make a concrete action plan. Spare keys, emergency contacts, teaching children how to call for help, small steps that can save lives. 4. Evaluate safety. Some actions may actually increase risk, like carrying a weapon. We help the victim find the safest and most realistic options. In Taiwan's multicultural society, we offer this plan in multiple languages: Chinese, English, Japanese, Thai, Vietnamese, Korean, Indonesian, Burmese, and Khmer. Because we want every victim to know, no matter what language you speak, your safety matters. This safety plan isn't just a checklist. It's a gentle but powerful message: your safety truly matters. After talking about safety planning, we also need to face a very real question: what if the victim can't stay at home anymore? Is there a safe place they can go? The answer is yes. That's where shelter services come in. In Taiwan, we have a diverse shelter system designed for different types of victims. The placement depends on age, health, and individual needs, so each person gets the most suitable care. Women, there are short-term, mid-term, and long-term shelters to help them escape danger, stabilize, and rebuild their lives. Children and teens, first, we try to place them with relatives. If that's not possible, they go to foster homes, care facilities, or group homes that provide safety and structure. Elderly victims, they are placed in nursing homes or senior care centers, to make sure their daily and medical needs are well supported. People with disabilities, they go to specialized care institutions where staff understand their needs and can provide long-term, professional support. In short, this shelter system is built to ensure one thing: that everyone who needs help can find a safe place to land. Now, let's take a closer look at shelter services for women and children in Taiwan. As of now, there are 47 shelters for women nationwide. 27 are short-term shelters, excluding hotel-style placements. Average stay, 30 days to 3 months. 20 are mid to long-term shelters, where women can stay 6 months to 1 year. For children and teens, here are the current numbers: 106 residential care institutions, 1,346 foster families, about 64 group homes. Whenever possible, children are placed with relatives first. If that's not an option, younger children, elementary age and below, are usually placed with foster families. Older children, junior high and above, are placed in residential care institutions. By default, shelter stays last until age 18. But if the youth is still in school, not yet financially independent, or the social worker believes support is still needed, care can be extended up to age 22. Of course, we also face real-world challenges, especially in child and youth shelter placement. In some areas, resources are limited. We often have to arrange cross-district or even cross-county placements. This remains one of our biggest ongoing challenges. Next, in recent years, child abuse cases in Taiwan have been increasing. Many children suffer severe physical and psychological trauma. Some develop serious disabilities, such as brain injury, paralysis, or even blindness. These children have very specialized care needs that most regular shelters simply cannot handle. To meet this urgent need, Feixiong Home was created. Feixiong, in English, means flying elephant. It's the first center in Taiwan designed specifically for children who have become severely disabled due to abuse. It's located at Minxing Hospital in Kaohsiung, right next to our own hospital, and it's supported by the local Health Bureau and Social Affairs Bureau. Feixiong Home cares for abused children ages 0 to 18 who require intensive medical care and rehabilitation. It offers customized therapy, medical support, and a healing environment so these children can grow up feeling safe, warm, and supported. Now, I'd like to show you a short video to help you better understand this home filled with love.
飞象家园附设于高雄市民生医院，是全台湾首创专为0至18岁重症受虐儿童所打造的专属照护机构，期望借由飞象家园的照护，即使与别人不一样， 孩童们也能像小飞象，充满希望，自在翱翔。
目前呢，没有一个符合他们的生活所需，或者是一个设施设备的一个环境，能够安置他们，让他们能够正常的成长。那目前民生医院有附设一个住宿长照机构，取名叫做飞象家园。在环境规划的部分，我们设有角落涂鸦区、游戏发展区、飞象书屋以及主题房间。我们不仅提供儿童专属环境，我们还有专业团队的加入。例如说医疗、生活照护以及社工以及早疗团队。
我们飞象家园它是提供24小时专人的照顾服务，主要是针对孩童的生活日常起居以及复健复能。目前我们每周有跨团队的照顾讨论会议，针对孩童来到我们这边，目前有哪些方面的问题，比如说营养问题、复健问题，还是就学方面的问题，我们都会提出来讨论。
孩子入住的时候，我们会去做一个家庭功能的一个评估，了解孩子的就学就医的一个状况。长时间来说，这些孩子呢，他需要包含了卫政、社政、教育等网络的合作，尤其是针对有返家可能的孩子呢，我们会更主动积极的联络家属，引导他们逐步的探视，加强联系，让他们可以步向返家之路。
我们会先帮孩子做营养评估，那在做营养评估的过程当中，我们会根据他的身高、体重、年纪、健康的状况，还有进食的情形，帮他做一个整体的评估。再根据评估的过程了解他的营养问题。那了解了营养问题之后，再帮他做一些建议跟指导，让他获得更适切的营养。
在这边一个特点就是说，我们可以在地的去做复健的介入，也可以跟照护员、治疗师之间呢都有一个比较好的结合，让他们小朋友在课后或者假日的时候，还可以继续执行治疗师交代的一些活动，让他们持续的可以去练习，进而达到进步。
因为他们都是多重障碍的孩子，成长过程当中就是比较辛苦。
这些孩子呢，从照护到就学，需要大家一起努力，接受密集及阶段性的疗愈课程，能够恢复身体功能，掌握黄金复健期。这是民生医院最想为这些孩子所做的。
Now we come to the final topic of today's talk, offender intervention. And I know what some of you might be thinking, wait, offenders need help too? Aren't they the bad guys? Why help them? I get it. That reaction is honest. And totally understandable. But hold on, we're not here to give them a free pass or say they're angels. The point is, we're not letting them keep making mistakes. We're helping them change their behavior so the cycle of harm doesn't continue, making life safer for everyone. Think of it this way, it's like asking them to sign a contract that says, no more harm. No more fear. Time to grow up. Because if we don't help them change, they'll burn down their own lives, and everyone around them will get hurt too. First, the goal of offender intervention is simple, don't let them do it again. We're not just asking them to say I'm sorry and move on. We actually teach them how to control their anger, how to walk away when things get heated, how to solve problems without exploding like a volcano. Second, take responsibility. A lot of offenders say, it's her fault. She pushed me. But we help them understand, no. You chose to use violence. That's a tough step. But it's a critical one. Third, protect the victim. We don't just take their word when they say they've changed. We back it up with legal tools, like protection orders, so they don't get too close, or try to control the victim again. Fourth, what if they still have to live together? Or raise kids together? That's when we teach real communication. No more yelling. No more threats. Just learning to talk, listen, and show respect, so the home doesn't turn into a battlefield. And finally, we want them to rebuild their lives. Not stay stuck with the label offender. We want them to become people who take responsibility, learn from their mistakes, and rejoin society as healthier human beings. Now, let me walk you through what's included in an offender treatment program. These programs are designed for the offender, to provide counseling and treatment. They usually include cognitive behavioral education, parenting education, psychological counseling, psychiatric treatment, addiction treatment, and other services based on the person's specific needs in practice. Cognitive behavioral education is often done in group sessions. It helps offenders reflect on their behavior and rebuild healthy relationship values. Parenting education used to be group-based too, but now, due to limited resources, it's often done one-on-one, especially for those struggling with parenting. Psychological counseling focuses on deeper emotional and psychological issues. It helps them process trauma and develop emotional control. Psychiatric or addiction treatment may require outpatient care or even hospitalization, depending on the case. As for other services, those are adjusted based on specific needs. To be honest, from my own experience, I haven't personally encountered many of those special cases yet, but that probably just means I still have more to learn. The key point is, these programs aren't just for show. They're real efforts to help offenders change, to stop the cycle of violence and make society safer for everyone. Earlier, I mentioned that cognitive and parenting education is usually done through group sessions or one-on-one counseling. But what do these programs actually teach? Well, the government has set clear guidelines. Let's take cognitive education as an example. It focuses on 8 key topics. First, we ask participants to think about their own lives. What kind of life do I want? What kind of family do I hope to have? You'd be surprised, many have never stopped to really ask themselves that. Second, they learn what violence actually is, and how it harms the people around them. It's not about memorizing definitions. It's about realizing that even a small action can be threatening. Next, we teach them how to manage stress and emotions. Instead of using fists or shouting, they learn how to express anger in a clear, respectful way. One big goal is building empathy. Not pity, but learning to see things from someone else's point of view. Understanding that the people around them are not there to absorb their anger. They're human. They feel, too. The program also covers gender equality, healthy relationships, family communication, and alcohol use. They also learn about the law, so they understand, this isn't just a private matter. It's a crime. Overall, these sessions aren't about shaming people. They're not just lectures, either. They're meant to guide participants to slowly shift how they see themselves, their family, and their relationships. And the goal is simple: stop using violence to solve problems. Because it doesn't solve anything. It only hurts others. And destroys your own future. Moving on to parenting education. Parenting education isn't just about how to be a mom or dad. It's about learning what it really means to be a responsible caregiver. At the start, the course introduces how children grow, physically, emotionally, and mentally, at different ages. Many parents assume their kids are misbehaving on purpose. But in truth, what looks like bad behavior may just be a normal part of growing up. A 3-year-old and a 13-year-old need very different parenting styles. Next, the course focuses on the responsibilities of being a parent, and how to raise children in non-violent, healthy ways. They also learn how deeply violence harms children, especially when it happens over time. This leads them to reflect on their own actions, and how those actions impact their children's development. They also learn to handle family stress, and how to build better daily communication, with their partners, and especially with their children. It's like a family version of conflict resolution. Beyond that, the program teaches them how to use community resources, and explains the legal responsibilities of family violence and child protection. Because change isn't just about how we feel, it also takes structure, tools, and clear boundaries. Currently, there are 2 main ways someone joins a parenting program. 1. The court orders the offender to attend, as part of a protection order. 2. Under the Child and Youth Welfare Act, social workers identify high-risk families and offer parenting education as early support. In practice, many referrals come from frontline social workers. If a parent wants to improve their relationship with their child, they're encouraged to join. But if the parent refuses, and the child's safety is at risk, the social worker can apply for a protection order, and the program becomes mandatory. In short, these courses are more than parenting tips. They're like a mirror, helping offenders see themselves in a new light. They learn to care, understand, and respect, instead of control. Maybe they came because the law required it. But when they leave, we hope they're no longer just trying to make their child behave, we hope they're trying to be the adults their child truly needs. Now let's take a look at the counseling and clinical treatment side. First, psychological counseling. This is for offenders who struggle with emotional control, or who tend to explode under pressure. They meet one-on-one with a psychologist to better understand their own emotional patterns, why they react the way they do, and how to handle stress and conflict in healthier ways. Counseling sessions are usually once a week, about 1 hour each. The number of sessions depends on the case. For more serious issues, 12 to 24 sessions. For milder cases, around 6 sessions may be enough. A professional will assess the needs and set a plan. Next, psychiatric and addiction treatment. This is for offenders with mental health conditions, or those struggling with alcohol or substance use. This part is handled by the medical system. Treatment may be outpatient or inpatient, and sessions are often every 2 to 4 weeks. How long does it last? It varies, anywhere from 6 months to 2 years, depending on the person's progress. As mentioned earlier, the type and number of intervention sessions are based on a professional assessment. This whole process is what we call the pretrial assessment system. In Taiwan, before a protection order is issued, a judge may ask for a pretrial assessment to determine what kind of intervention best suits the offender. According to the Domestic Violence Prevention Act, a judge can directly order the offender to attend cognitive education or parenting programs. But if the case involves mental illness, or alcohol and drug use, a more in-depth assessment is required. This is called a pretrial diagnostic assessment. The assessment has 5 key goals: 1. To determine if intervention is needed; 2. To decide what type, cognitive, parenting, or clinical; 3. To assess the risk of future harm or repeat violence; 4. To design a tailored intervention plan; 5. To bring together courts, social services, health care, police, and counseling into a full support system. The assessment takes a deep look into the offender's background, life history, family relationships, partner dynamics, criminal record, job status, and substance use. It also includes psychological and psychiatric assessments to explore their emotional state and how they perceive their violent behavior. Using this information, professionals can decide if the offender is suitable for intervention, if they need mental health or addiction treatment, and how to build an individualized treatment plan. This system isn't just about correcting the offender. It's about protecting the family, and giving them a real chance to heal, and start again. During a pretrial diagnostic assessment, we follow a structured, step-by-step process. We usually start with a group session. We bring the offenders together to watch 2 short films about domestic violence. The first film is called The World at 100 Centimeters. It tells the story through the eyes of a young boy. He watches his father hurt his mother. And through his eyes, we see how children feel in a violent home, the fear, the helplessness, and how those experiences might affect them later in life. Sometimes, they even repeat the cycle. The second film is 4F, number 5, Lane 36. This one follows a woman who lives with violence for years. Over time, she loses herself. And the people around her? They pretend not to see. The film reminds us, violence isn't just about losing control. It's a choice. A behavior that can be changed. But that takes emotional awareness, taking responsibility, and learning how to stop hurting others, so you can start rebuilding your relationships. After each film, we lead a discussion. We ask participants to share their thoughts. The goal isn't to blame them. It's to guide them to reflect, what is violence? And what impact does it really have? Then we introduce a tool called the Power and Control Wheel. In simple terms, it helps them understand that violence isn't just about hitting. It includes things like, controlling money, limiting freedom, emotional blackmail, insults and humiliation. These are all ways of using power to control others. Finally, we move to a one-on-one interview. Here, we explore, personal history, childhood and family background, emotional patterns and stress, how they view their own behavior, whether they see it as wrong, and what they feel they need to change. In short, we start with ideas, then go deeper into personal stories. Because only when we truly understand the person can we create an intervention plan that actually works. In these intervention programs, the length of cognitive and parenting education depends on two main factors, the offender's risk level, and whether alcohol is involved. To keep it simple, low-risk cases with no alcohol problem usually take 12 weeks. If alcohol is involved, it's extended to 18 weeks. For medium to high-risk cases, the course can go up to 24 weeks. These programs are usually run by local agencies, officially designated by the court. Even if the offender is in custody or detained, the intervention still continues. Some prisons are specifically designated to provide domestic violence treatment programs. Even after release on parole or probation, the court may require them to continue community-based intervention. The purpose is clear: no matter what stage they're in, we keep the system involved. We guide them. We support change. We reduce the risk of future harm. And we believe, with the right timing and the right approach, change is possible. The key is, don't give up. And don't stop the process. Now, let's talk about how intervention programs are followed up. This part is critical, because most intervention orders come from the court, as part of a protection order, which means they carry legal weight. Here's how the follow-up process works. Step 1, once the court issues the order, it goes to the local health authority. They refer the offender to a designated treatment agency, and they don't stop there, they also track the progress along the way. This includes follow-ups, case tracking, and progress evaluations. If the offender becomes unreachable, they can ask the police to help locate them. Step 2, the treatment agency is responsible for helping the offender complete the program. If the offender doesn't show up on time, the agency must contact them within a week. If calls don't work, they will send texts or voice messages, and continue to track any absences. If the person skips sessions without cause, the agency will report it to the health authority, which may then notify the court. The offender may face a fine, or in serious cases, even lose bail. Step 3, for high-risk cases, like repeated violence or breaking a protection order, the local domestic violence center can call a multi-agency case conference. That means the court, police, health officials, and others come together to monitor the case more closely. If the team hears dangerous threats, like "if I go down, I'm taking everyone with me," they flag it right away. If the offender disappears, a social worker will try to contact the victim, to gather clues or check if more protection is needed. And if the risk goes up, they'll remind the victim to strengthen safety measures. This is how we make sure that both intervention and protection are not just on paper, but real, active systems to prevent further harm. So overall, in Taiwan, here's how the intervention process works for offenders, whether it's the prosecutor, a social worker from the DV Center, the police, or the victim who applies for a protection order. The judge can order the offender to attend a program, like cognitive education or parenting counseling. If needed, the judge may ask a professional team to do an assessment and recommend a treatment plan. Once the protection order is issued, the court notifies the offender, their legal representative, the implementing agency, the victim, and the district prosecutor's office. It also informs the local health authority, usually the Public Health Bureau, which arranges a designated intervention provider. Facilities that can carry out these programs include general hospitals with psychiatric services, specialized psychiatric hospitals, and approved addiction treatment centers. For non-medical programs, like cognitive education, parenting support, or counseling, the work may also be done by licensed clinics, social work offices, or nonprofit organizations. Once the offender shows up at the assigned agency, the intervention program begins. If they fail to report on time, the agency must contact them at least once within 1 week. A treatment coordination social worker from the Health Bureau will also check in with the offender from time to time. If the offender stops attending for over 3 months, the Health Bureau sends a written notice to both the offender and the treatment agency. Then the agency must try to contact the offender again, within 1 week of their new report date. This system helps make sure the offender can't just say, "Oh, I never got the notice," and try to avoid the program. In my work with people who have used violence, my main role is to lead cognitive education groups. So next, I'd like to focus on how these group sessions are actually run, and what kind of support they aim to provide. In Taiwan, each city has developed its own unique approach based on local needs and resources. Here are a few examples. Kaohsiung City uses cognitive behavioral therapy, CBT, with a focus on reality therapy and recidivism prevention. It helps offenders face real consequences and learn how to change their actions. Tainan City offers a cognitive and emotional support group specifically for intimate partner violence offenders. The focus is not only on self-awareness, but also on managing emotions. New Taipei City draws on the Duluth model from the US, combined with feminist theory, CBT, and family systems dynamics. The result is a therapeutic group program that blends multiple perspectives. The Taiwan Transactional Analysis Association applies transactional analysis, TA, to help offenders explore and change communication patterns in a group therapy setting. So, even though the methods differ, the goal is the same: help offenders better understand themselves, change harmful behavior, and prevent future violence, so families can move toward healing and peace. Let's take Kaohsiung City as an example. Right now, 5 agencies are running cognitive education groups. In total, there are 7, each with its own facilitator and approach. While the goal is the same, helping offenders reflect and change, each group may use a slightly different method. Among them, Kaohsiung Kaisuen Psychiatric Hospital runs 2 of these groups, one on Tuesdays, and one on Fridays. The Friday group is a standard cognitive education program. The Tuesday group, however, includes an additional alcohol recovery component. It's specially designed for offenders whose violent behavior is linked to alcohol use. To end today's talk, I'd like to share a bit of my experience leading cognitive education groups. After doing this work for years, I've learned one thing: family violence doesn't just hurt the victim. It affects the entire family. In group sessions, many offenders have told me, at the time of the incident, they felt confused, powerless, sometimes even deeply misunderstood. Some say they lost control because of stress or anger. They never meant to cause harm. And afterwards, they saw how badly it damaged the family, and they truly felt regret. That's why in our programs, we spend a lot of time on emotional expression. Many offenders never had a chance to explain their side. They felt silenced by the court process. But keeping everything inside can lead to even more problems, sometimes even thoughts of revenge. In our group, we help them speak their emotions out loud. We teach them, your feelings are valid. It's not about who's right or wrong. Anger is normal. The key is, how do you express it in a healthy way? Once they learn that, they have a real chance to stop the violence and rebuild trust at home. Now, let's be honest. Most of them didn't come voluntarily. They were sent by court order or protection order. At first, many are resistant. They don't want to face what's happening. That's okay. It's normal. Our first job is to help them let go of that resistance and start looking at their relationship issues. And here's the most important principle we follow: we see the person, not just the problem. We don't just see an offender. We see a human being, with emotions, struggles, work, and dreams. Some are hard-working employees. Some are night shift drivers. Some are designers. Some are fathers who take care of their kids. Yes, they've done harm. Yes, they're struggling. But that doesn't mean they're evil or beyond help. If we can first understand them, and accept their pain and powerlessness, then maybe, just maybe, they'll begin to open up, reflect, and change. As I mentioned, one of the biggest things about offender intervention groups is this: no one actually wants to be there. Most participants are there because the court said so, or because the law requires it. If they don't join, they could face legal consequences. So when people first enter the group, they bring a lot of mixed emotions: nervousness, frustration, anger, worry, even shame or depression. They don't know each other. They don't trust the facilitator yet. They have no idea what the group will be like. So at the beginning, most participants stay quiet, cautious, or defensive. And remember, these people have just been through a storm: police reports, criminal charges, court hearings, a protection order, and then suddenly, you're ordered to take a class. Emotionally, they're often at the breaking point. In the early sessions, we usually see two common reactions. 1. Constant complaining. They vent for a long time, about the law, about the victim, about the police, the judge, the social worker. And once one person starts, others join in. The group becomes a cycle of negative echoing. If the facilitator doesn't step in, it turns into a blame and rant session, with emotions getting more intense and dangerous ideas being reinforced. 2. Complete silence. Some participants resist by staying silent. In lighter cases, they listen quietly and might give short answers once in a while. Over time, these people might slowly open up. But in tougher cases, they shut down completely. They stare off into space, play with their phones, or refuse to respond at all. Facilitators have to balance two things: 1. Respecting silence, 2. Encouraging participation. If you push too hard, they'll fake it, say what they think you want to hear. But if you give them too much space, the group goes cold. No energy, no progress. The real work is finding that middle ground, creating just enough pressure to invite honesty, but not so much that they shut down. In the early stages of group work, I often use a small technique to help reduce resistance, especially around protection orders. It also helps participants reflect more deeply on the issues behind their violent behavior. Besides explaining the core ideas of the Domestic Violence Prevention Act, I offer a simple metaphor. I call it the health checkup model. Here's what I say: when your body feels off, you go get a health checkup. It doesn't mean you're a bad person. It doesn't mean you're broken. It just means something needs attention and adjustment. Same thing with a protection order or a court mandate. It's like a relationship checkup report. It's telling you, something in the way you relate to your family isn't working. In the group, I often hear things like this: Jason says, my wife took me to court, how are we supposed to move on as a couple? Eric asks, if there's a protection order, can we still be a real family? Ben shares, my son told me, you were annoying. Leave me alone. Mike says, I just yelled at my kid a little, and now their mom got a protection order. Fine, then I just won't care anymore. All of these are really asking one thing: is there still hope for the relationship? And it's a question many people care about. I usually tell them, people apply for protection orders for different reasons. But most are saying this: I can't go on interacting with you the same way anymore. Some hear that and think, this is the end. That's despair. But others hear it and think, maybe we can try something different. That's hope. So in group, I guide them to think, a protection order is not the end of the relationship, it's a turning point. Just like a medical checkup, you find the problem, and then you decide, do I want to start taking care of it, or do I give up? Next, I share a few simple metaphors with group members to help them better understand what a protection order really means, and what change can look like. Here's the first one: what would you think if your health report came back covered in red marks? I ask them, have you ever gotten a medical report with lots of red numbers? High blood pressure? Liver problems? Cholesterol through the roof? What does that mean? It's not that your doctor did something to you. It's not the report's fault. It just reflects what's happening in your body right now. It's telling you, here's where the problem is. It needs your attention. Same thing with a protection order. When the judge gets involved, when the police step in, when the social worker calls, they're not out to get you. They're not attacking you. They're not punishing you for nothing. They're sending you a message: something in this relationship is not okay. It's time to face it. It's time to deal with it. The second metaphor I share: would things have been fine if you just argued a little less that day? A lot of people say things like, it's because my wife suddenly filed a protection order that day. If my kid hadn't failed that exam, we wouldn't have argued. But I ask them, was the problem really just that one day? Or was it years of tension and conflict building up? It's like high blood pressure. You don't get it from eating one instant noodle meal. It comes from long-term habits, stress, diet, lack of sleep. Same with your family. It's not just about one fight. It's about years of poor communication. So instead of saying, if only I had done things differently that day, let's ask, what can I do differently from now on? Now, here's the third metaphor: how long does change take to actually work? I often hear this: I stopped drinking. I don't shout anymore. Why doesn't she trust me? I'm trying to change. Why won't she come back? I get it. Their frustration is real. But I tell them, think of it like quitting smoking, or getting fit. You don't become super healthy in 2 days. It takes time. It takes consistency. But if you keep going, if you show your effort through actions, your family will see the change. These metaphors aren't just about facing reality. They help people move from a place of, I'm just a victim of the system, to, what can I still do? That's where real change begins. That's the end of today's talk. Thank you so much for your time, your attention, and your participation. I truly hope today's sharing was helpful to you, and I look forward to connecting with you again in the future. Wishing you all peace, health, and strength on the journey ahead.